How are you doing today? I am so excited to be here today. And first of all, I want to go ahead and introduce my guest. I know I've been leading you all up to him coming on this show, and it's been such a great pleasure to meet with him. His name is Stefan Stefanson, and he is from the UK. And he's going to give us some great information about men and relationships, communicating, and all of that good stuff. And I'm sure all of us who are in a relationship, want to be in a relationship, know someone else who's in a relationship, want to hear what he has to say. So let's go ahead and get into it. How are you doing today,
I'm
Stephenson?
doing very well. Thanks for having me on your show.
I'm glad to have you here. Now, it's my understanding that you are a man with a lot of experience. Am I correct? In
Correct.
various areas of relationships,
Yes.
and and I know you're from the UK, and I'm interested in what you have to say because I just want to know if you've spoken to men all over the world or just mainly in your area, and do you see a difference in communication and how men, handle certain issues.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I've kind of been fortunate enough to be able to help men or guide men in both side of the pond, as we talk, both the side of the Atlantic, being in the North America and Europe. And there
Hmm.
is a definitely different uh, focus or how kind of men kind of communicate for sure and how men behave. Uh,
Hmm.
so I'm from Iceland originally, and Iceland was very strong in the feminine movement in the 70s.
Okay.
So I was brought up with a very strong belief in equal uh, rights and kind of the women and men are equal and they should be equal in their partnerships. And then you compare that to Eastern Europe, where it's much more masculine and the men are much more dominating. And the US is kind of a, you can find everything in the US.
Right.
Kind of things because it hasn't. So yeah, for sure. Scandinavia is much more equal, more kind of mutual respect. Eastern Europe is much more. The man is there to protect, and like they are the figurehead, so it's more driven from a masculinity side of things. So yeah, for sure, you can see the difference between geographies for sure.
Okay. Now, as I said earlier, my understanding is that, of course, you're a. Do you consider yourself a relationship coach or a man that's just kind of over the last 25 years, from what you've indicated, you have, you know, um, you've been a single man, of course, a husband, a divorcee, of course, a father, um, a coach. So you have a very diverse background and a lot of experience that you can bring to men and for women to help us understand men and how they relate and communicate, and why sometimes conversations that seem so easy to us seem to be so difficult for them. Can you kind of help explain to us why, what you've come across and why it's the difference on in your area too of the world is in us here in the US?
Yeah, what I found is that men in general have a very kind of a upbringing, like in where they're grown up, how to behave
Hmm.
as a man. And
Okay.
especially in today's society, there's that message is very much diluted into how to behave. Are you allowed to like look at a woman and compliment her on her dress, or are
Hmm.
you things like that? So the message can be very very diluted. But I think for men though is about, I think what men generally struggle with is communication, and
Exactly.
uh, and 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 we fall into this as men is that we want to fix things.
Hmm.
We are very good at looking at something, analyzing it, and then fixing it. Women, on the other hand, what we like men tend to struggle, like you see a lot of these comedy movies, is that we jump in with a solution where women are just wanting somebody to listen, just be
Hmm.
somewhere, be empathetic, and be present. And that's where I
Right.
find, and that's generally applies to all men, regardless of geographies, is that we tend to want to just jump in there, fix it, and solve it, and move on. Where
Right. No, go ahead.
Where women on the other hand is more, they want to reflect, they want to talk about it, analyze, and take the time to get there. So I think we men and women get lost in translation how the different sexes deal with communication or conflict in that manner.
Have you seen in your experience that men that come from well, let me say this. I don't know if you've heard of it, and I don't want to 100% quote the title, but it goes something like this: men are from Mars and women are from Venus, or something of that. Have you heard of that book? Well,
Yeah.
and I think sometimes as women we do feel that way. And I guess I'm wondering, do you feel as if, from your experience, men that come from a two-parent household, loving household, seem to be a little more adapt to relate to various information? Say someone like a man like you who've had different experience may give them as far as relationship. Do you think it's easier for them to convert to it and take it in?
I actually don't know. So my background is I came from a very loving relationship and very, it kind of was very loving, but there was no highs and no lows. So
Okay.
I've never remembered really remembering my parents arguing, except when they were in the old days and they were just getting on one another's nerves.
Yeah.
but when I was growing up, I didn't have that. But then I went into my relationships, and it was not so much what I was feeling from my home environment. It was more about my self-belief and my insecurities. And those insecurities reflected on me that badly that I went down to a path of not wanting to talk about it, bury it in my subconscious, and that didn't allow me to be present in my relationships. And I think that happens to a lot of men, that they don't want to be vulnerable, they don't want to be in touch with the emotional side, because men are very analytical in general. I mean, there's always the mix of men that are much more in touch with the emotional side, but men in general are not taught to be vulnerable. They're taught about you're going out there, you're supposed to make a living, pay your family, look after them and make them safe. That was the old
And be
definition
strong. Yeah.
exactly. That was the old definition of what a man was supposed to be. And then the old definition was as well that the women were home and looking after the children and making the family unit safe and prosper. But now we have. Yep.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you think that because men are always put in that perspective as you have to be strong, and I know a lot of time, even as mothers, sometimes you don't like to see your son cry a lot because we kind of teach them as young boys, look, you have to be tough, you have to be strong, and like you say, take care of the family kind of thing. We kind of raise men up to be in that position. Do you think that has something to do with their way, the way they communicate as well?
Absolutely. I mean, like we parents fall into a trap of stereotypical sex or male. Like everybody talks about now. Like when you go to a children's birthday and you go to and it's a girl's birthday, you will bring a cuddly toy or a doll or something that more sexual orientated. And then if you go to a boys one, you will play an action figure or a car or a football. So it's just kind of you kind of fall into that stereotypical society, almost like pattern of where you're supposed to fit. And I think we're finding much more now is that I think we sometimes have gone too far in that discussion, and we need to find a middle way. Like some people, like some girls, do like to play with dolls, and there's nothing wrong with that. Don't take the doll away from her. And say with the boys, say, like I think it's more just allow them to have a choice. So so I have a girl, a daughter of 10, and I always remember one of the things that I was very so focused on when I'm bringing her up, making her independent. That's the only thing that I want for her, is that she can stand up to somebody and say, this is not what I want because it's not for me. And that's the only thing I want to want from her, is that she has a strong personality, that she can stand up to those things. And men, on the other hand, need to be able to do that thing as well, is to we think of from the shoulder up a lot of the times for men. We need to start thinking more about from the emotional side of things and actually in touch with what we actually want out of this and what is in it for me and how can I grow out of it or grow into it.
Right. Do you think, like you said, because society, we put men in a certain perspective, we feel like that's taking a step back, when we don't allow ourselves to, well, when we do allow ourselves to be too vulnerable, we kind of lose our position in the family or in the relationship. Do you think that that's why, as men, they don't do a lot of that, and why they find it difficult to be able to reach out and just let their guard down? Because women, we're more emotional, I think, and it is a difference in men and women. There is it is a difference. I think it's very difficult to say we're gonna all just be on one track, because there is a difference. You know what I mean? There's certain things,
Absolutely.
like I've been married almost 30 years, and there are certain things I'm gonna do, and there are certain things my husband's gonna do, because I'm just not, I don't like to get dirty, and I don't want to be
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
so I think it's very difficult to make them equal. How do you suggest something like
Absolutely,
that?
and it's like with anybody. Some people like to do certain things, and others like. It's not for me. I don't feel like there's a certain role or certain things that are women or men. It's more what you kind of like to do. Do you like to be taken
Right.
care of? Like a lot of women, and there's I hear a lot of women complaining. Like some now is men are too soft. They not like don't show up, and they kind of are too much of uh, what's the right word here? Like puppy dogs. Kind of,
Hmm.
and they're not
Listen
expressing
soft.
themselves.
Listen soft nowadays.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've gone too far to the other side, and
Hmm.
it's like with anything. You want somebody, and I think that's for me what I've seen in my relationship coaching with men is that you need to have opinion in your relationship. You need to
I
know
agree.
who your authentic self is, because if you don't know those two things, if you do not show up in the relationship, there is no
Hmm.
relationship. And
Hmm.
then a lot of men let the kind of the woman just take over, and the women are very good at it, taking over, because they were very good and through the ages to actually take control of the family and control the
Right.
family, and
Hmm.
they would protect the family, and the men
Hmm.
would be there more of the kind of do the
Pick up the slack.
yeah, exactly. And me and men are falling into, when we date, when we start dating, we are very
Hmm.
attentive. We take me all to this nice like restaurants, and there's always a plan, right?
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
in about like 6 months, 9 months, or when we're comfortable in the relationship, men a lot of times will then get lazy, and they will
Hmm.
stop applying themselves, or are in a relationship where it's not the relationship they want to be in, but
Hmm.
are not addressing what they actually need from the relationship. So they fall into that. Yeah, I will just step back. I will like be on the pub a little bit longer and don't have to deal with the family. It's like instead of actually showing up and being authentic and being present in the relationships, I think it's very important. And the communication, that's where that gets very important in that dynamic.
As a woman, how do you suggest that? Well, I'm a woman, but just interacting with women, and from a man's perspective, how do you think, what do you think the best approach is for a woman if they have a man that is very difficult to crack, to get him to kind of let the guard down and be able to be, not just communicate, just affectionate, and just be, you can't be 100% to anyone. You have to, like you say, find a middle road. But how do you break into a man that has a very tough exterior?
It's very difficult to break somebody down if he doesn't want to change or he doesn't
That's
want
true.
to do a certain thing. It's,
Hmm.
so it comes to a point is that you have to have that communication channel open. And I think as well, women are always very good at thinking the men understand when like the typical scene in a comedy movie that, did you not see what I said? Like, did you see my face? Did you like, see how
Hmm.
upset I was? It's like, no, I didn't say. Well, I said that it was actually not about that. It was about this, and
Right.
like that miscommunication or thinking the man will actually see something that is obvious.
Right.
I think in a certain way, it's being very straightforward and very clear in your communication with the man, especially if they're like that, because they may not really understand what the problem is.
Right. So if you have a man that's very rigid or whatever, manly man, he doesn't talk a lot. He does take care of the family. He does provide and all of that kind of thing. But you are missing that affection and the communication. He's not present, as you say. Um, and he's good, but he's good where he's at. He feels like he's doing his job, how he was raised. That's just kind of how he does. But you're a woman, you feel like something is missing. So do you think there's a way? I know you said it's difficult to break through to someone that doesn't want that to happen. Can that relationship continue to move forward, you think? Or is it going to be very difficult?
It all comes down to if both persons in the relationship are willing to make a compromise.
Mm-hmm.
But then to make a compromise, you need to be respectful.
Okay.
And understanding, and then you need to be open in your communication. You need to be like expressing what you need from the relationship without actually making accusations. Because that's the other thing where I'm coached with a lot of my men is being able to sit there and take criticism without jumping in and having to defend yourself. Because you need to get the other person to tell you what is going on before you actually need to, or take it as a healthy criticism instead of actually somebody backing into the corner and you need to fight yourself out. And I think men do that quite a bit. And when you start to raise your voice, the other person starts to raise your voice, and then it blows up.
Right.
And it's about keeping the communication going and keeping the respect. And courtesy to the other person to hear them out. Because I find a lot of communication gets cut off. Hey, people are maybe not always as good at communicating. One person can be better than the other. It comes back to, I think, there's a term like your love language. What's your love language? Is your love language doing something for a person, or is it communicating or writing a poetry or what it is? It's finding that what is somebody's love language, and then kind of nurture that step of it. And then, but at the end of the day, though, it always comes down to being respectful, communicate, and show the other person the courtesy of listen to the side of what it is. Because I find a lot of the times that people start to say something, the other person jumps up and then start talking over one another, and things get lost in the communication.
Right. So do you think it's when you have a relationship that's already having those type struggles, and now here comes a child in the relationship, do you think sometimes a child can be a good communication point that maybe, okay, now we have someone that we both love. Now that kind of sometimes can break a man to a certain point where he now realizes, wow, I have to be affectionate to this child. Or do you think that same personality is going to fall into the way he treats the child as well?
There's absolutely, it can be both. I've seen both happen where men will get much more vulnerable because they have a child, or get so scared and so vulnerable that they even back out. So and in my opinion, like if you in a relationship and you feel it's stalling, I would never advocate that you should have a child just to save the relationship.
Okay.
Because when when you get to over those probably 6 to 8 years, the first one, because it's just so busy, you're running around, always chasing the child. But when it starts to calm down, those struggles you had in the beginning will materialize, and you will need to address them.
I agree.
And adding a child into it is never a good thing.
So what is your approach to, for instance, you have this man a group of men that you're going to coach. They find themselves, okay, we finally realize there are some things that we need to work on. And then they come and they want to listen to what you have to suggest. What is your approach to men? And what area do you attack first?
My approach is generally to get people to talk to me, listen to them, and because coaching to me is not for me to tell you the solution. That's just consulting, and then like I'm telling you what to do. I'm not going to control your life, and that never works.
Right.
Like I generally want to work with people that want to solve this for themselves and need guidance. That's what coach to me is. Like you have like if you take any sporting kind of environment, like any sporting teams or whatever it will be, American football or baseball or whatever, there are individuals there in those teams that are very skilled and know their stuff, but they just need guidance to get to the next level. So that's how I see it. It's all about communication, all about getting them to realize by leading them into or having open questions or putting in simple, are this the right thing to do? And get themselves to think about the scenarios that they found themselves in and talk about their maybe past experiences in regards to getting them to reflect, was that the right behavior? Or why would you think that didn't work so well? And have them, and then coach them that way into a conversation. It's not about what I went through. I will always dwell on my experience that I've gone through.
Right.
And the tools that I use to get me to understand how I could get better. And I'm still on that journey, and I'm nowhere perfect in any shape or form. And I always fall into those same traps. And but it's a lot of the time, I feel the more you talk about it, the more open about it, the more you have it in front of your mind, the more you can address it. And then if you don't really know there is a problem.
Right. In your approach, do you ever have the woman in the relationship come in and be a part of your session?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you find that beneficial?
Or I will will coach women as well that are having difficulties with relating to a man, or they're having difficulties in the relationships, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And now in your geographical area, do you find that, because I know a lot in the States, we always say there's not enough men to go around, good men, should I say.
Yeah.
Do you find that in your area as well?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of the times, though, I feel there are men out there, but I think it's a lot of times I find with women is that they put this standard very high, or not so high. Everybody should have a standard, absolutely. But it's again finding that right mix or compromise, or giving somebody a chance that maybe not being the actual the knight on the shining armor kind of thing, but there could be a rough diamond in the rough kind of thing.
There's no perfect man or perfect woman, basically.
Yeah, and I find a lot of the times, and I'm faulted that as well when I was dating. I thankfully found a really lovely partner that we getting married to somewhere, but aside the point. But it's about not just always follow that stereotypical idea that you have in your mind, but give everybody a chance. At least have a coffee with somebody. Instead of saying, no, that look or that smile didn't work for me. Because you never know.
Well, these days some people are crazy now.
Absolutely.
You have to have a little selection process, because people these days, I always say you meet a person's representative. You never meet the real person. I'm always listening to TV, and of course, no one would meet someone, I would think, not go out with someone thinking that they are just crazy. But there are situations where you meet a representative, and then as time go on, like you say, everything manifests. Absolutely. So I think as women, we just kind of have so many different dynamics we have to deal with before we decide if we want to go even have coffee, conversation even. Because even being on social media, I was telling my daughter the other day, I don't trust sometimes the pictures that are up there, because, people download pictures and be a whole different person you think you're talking to now,
No, absolutely. And specifically for women, absolutely right. Especially with the access to the internet, the dating apps and stuff like that, you definitely need to be careful.
Right.
And there is a lot of vulnerable people out there, people that have issues, and you need for sure to be careful when you go out, or find a way to validate, because there's so many scary stories out there now.
Especially having a daughter. Yeah, you having a daughter. I know, it's a big concern. So you kind of have to weed people out before you even, back in the day, you can trust people. Even like they said, deals were made on a handshake. You do a handshake, it's going to be, it's going to move forward. Now, again, they give you their hand. You better be like, what? You just don't know.
And I think as well, we need to be much more ready to be critical as well. Sometimes as well, you stay in a relationship too long, and then you're absolutely right, because people, when you're dating, you have a shield up. You have your perfect image of yourself at that time. And people always say you don't meet the person that you're dating till like 6 or 9 months in.
Exactly.
When the shit starts to hit the fan, kind of thing.
Exactly.
But then again, you should then be very willing to be ruthless when it comes to there's a certain like things that are coming up in a person's personality that just doesn't ring true with you. And I think that's a lot of times as well with both sexes that they stay too long with some certain person because
I
they
agree.
just I've invested now 6 months into this. I can't really give up, and I think it's more. I find it women do that longer, especially when they get older, and they like maybe
Mm-hmm.
women that haven't had kids yet and
Mm-hmm.
they want to have kids,
Mm-hmm.
and they're willing to take somebody that's
Settle.
doesn't
Yeah.
fit with it, like it's definitely broken, just so
Mm-hmm.
they can get to have a kid. But in my
Exactly.
mind, that's not the right thing to do.
No, well, my grandmother, my great grandmother, she used to say, "Oh, that DNA, you got to be careful."
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely for sure.
So when you start mending and you have this little person, then you got to understand, you got to know who that, the real genes floating around because it's going to manifest as you stated. So yeah, I think a lot of times as women age, we become more vulnerable because we're like, man, I do want to. Most women, not all women these days. Some of them
Uh-huh.
they don't want to have children, but for those that do, they, even if they want to be independent, you still want companionship. You want someone that you can talk to, not just a girlfriend all the time or a guy friend if you're a guy. You want someone you can spend quality time with. And I think you do become more vulnerable the older you get.
Yeah,
When you
absolutely.
really shouldn't, because as we're getting older, men are getting old. But I don't know. But men, the older they get, they seem like they want younger women. I don't know what's into y'all. What is that about? Answer that question. What do you see that a
I
lot?
see it in a way. So I'm actually my partner is considerably younger than me. But what I
Oh, you're
found,
okay.
um,
Okay.
what I found when I was dating, I had
Uh-huh.
like a gauge gap of people I would look up to, and I didn't want to go too young because then it was just we didn't the dynamic wouldn't fit us
Right.
in kind of age and experience and so forth. But what I then found is women of around my age,
Mhm.
they wouldn't give me a second look.
Really?
Yeah, and I found it really hard to find somebody today that was around my age. But the
Mhm.
women who were younger, they were more open to. So I was a divorced single dad.
Mhm.
I, for instance, lost a couple of girlfriends because of my daughter, because they
Oh,
didn't want to compete. Because obviously I have to put my daughter is quite high on my priority when
right.
it comes, and so when I had to maybe drop everything because my daughter was sick or whatever, they didn't like that.
Mhm.
So they couldn't adapt to it. So I don't know if it's so much going for the younger girl. It's more. I just found it a very strange dynamic that I
I do
didn't
too. Yeah. That
find
seems a
that
little
easily.
strange to me because it seems like the older a woman is, they should be, well, if she's a woman that wants children, because all women don't want children. They don't want that
Yeah,
responsibility. But if she is, and it seems like it would be a very strange dynamic because most women are nurturers, and
yeah,
if there's a sick child or a child that we should understand. I mean, gosh, you're standing up as a father, and you're a single father. That should be. But when it seems like sometimes in those situations, like you say, your child is high on your priority list, then maybe the woman may feel as if, hey, he doesn't have time for me
yeah,
because he has that child, and that kind of makes him wanna. Because as a woman, you want to feel like you're number one, and it's difficult when children come into a relationship or are already there, should I
yeah, yeah.
say? You
And
know.
the other dynamic I found as well is I mean, it's different when the child is not involved, and if you're divorced, and the other half, or the
Mm-hmm.
ex-wife or the
Mm-hmm.
ex-husband is still there, a lot of people don't deal very well with that dynamic. Don't know
Right.
how to react because generally, if you date somebody and they had a long relationship but they didn't have a child, that person is just disappeared who doesn't is not in the
Mm-hmm.
relationship anymore. But with that ex element,
Mm-hmm.
that ex is still in the relationship and is still coming
Right.
in and out, and sometimes people feel threatened with that as well.
Right.
And it's like
Right.
I coach men as well for how to kind of behave in a step family and
Okay.
how to make sure that you kind of keep the dynamic that because as a step parent you're not coming in there to replace another parent.
Mm-hmm.
You're there as
Mm-hmm.
a friend or somebody they can rely on for. But you never will never replace a parent, and you should never see it
Right.
in that way that you. that you're being replaced or there's somebody there. They just have different dynamics, and that's very important for you to take that on board and being positive about it, because else you're just gonna kind of
Right. And
poison the
I've even
relationships.
And that's true. I've even seen it where people they have children together and they may have male and a female. And sometimes those children can become problems within their own relationship because the father may think the mother is you know, being too, I don't know, privy to the son and letting him get away with too much. I've seen that a lot.
Yeah,
And letting them get away with too much or whatever. And the mother may feel like you just baby the daughter all the time. So
yeah,
even your own children can become a problem. Well, you
yeah,
feel
yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah,
problem.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think what it for me was I kind of liked I saw this strapline the other day, and I kind of liked it and adapted it to mine. It's like it's that it can't be us without you. If you're not whole in your own self and
Mhm.
kind of aware of your own dynamics, I think
Mhm.
then you're not then very healthy for anybody else around you. So
I
that's very
agree.
important. That's the strongest thing I found on my journey is,
Mhm.
as I mentioned earlier, that I found not so much my family environment was more about the insecurities I felt inside of me that affected in my relationships as I got older.
Mhm. I can see that. And how do you deal with something like that when you realize that's the problem?
So first is actually to realize you have a problem. I think
Right?
is the biggest step,
That's
and
true.
then and being open to have people help you. Be open to maybe people suggesting read this book or maybe help you. But then the other thing as well, don't take it too literally. I find
Mhm.
a lot of these self-help books, they're very good, but don't take them literally. They apply the things that have been said to you in a healthy way. Like don't
Okay.
go overboard. Like find out that things that work for you and kind of and be good to yourself. I think is the biggest thing you can ever do to yourself. It's because you're always going to be your harshest critic, but at the same time,
Mhm.
you need to be your best friend as well. It's like
Right.
if you put yourself in the dynamic of if your friend doing something really inspiring, maybe like a dancer, whatever it is, or actor, whatever, and they go back and oh no, I messed up my line, it didn't work. You would never say to them, "No, you're horrible. You're absolutely right. Like, you were crap. You should never do this again."
Mhm.
You would never
Mhm.
say that to your best friend. You would always say,
Right.
like you were great. Okay, you make the mistake. You will do it again, and it will be better next time. And
Always
you need
try
to
to use a white glove effect.
yes, and you need to do that same with yourself. I think that's very important that you remember
Mhm.
um, to kind of give yourself credit
I
and be
think
your
so
best friend.
too. Yeah, I think so too. Oftentimes I think um as it all a lot of things come from inside and like you were saying earlier, some it's hard to fix something that you sometimes don't even know is broken. you know
Absolutely.
um yeah, as a person in the relationship, you're like, why don't you communicate? Well, I might be thinking I'm communicating just well. I'm doing a great job and you think I'm terrible, or I may not be hugging you enough. Well, I gave you a kiss this morning, you need one in the afternoon and before you go to bed. I mean, I kissed you on my way out the door, need one
Yeah,
coming in. And as a woman, we're like, I just want affection. And then you're like, okay, well, I mean, you want me to do cartwheels or something? So I don't know,
yeah,
communication, like you say, is the key.
yeah. Because I found like one of the things that like in my marriage that failed. One of the thing that I felt hugely was that I lived quite a lot in my mind. I would maybe come home, see my wife was very tired, and I thought I would give her space. I let her be.
Hmm.
But what she wanted was me to come over, give her like a passionate kiss, and give her the affection that she was so craving maybe for the day that she felt all alone. And I was thinking absolutely thinking, no, she wants her space, so I will kind
Hmm.
of got to give her space. So that's just yeah, communication and just be there, be present.
If you were going to compare your first, you were married twice. Is that what it
I was
is?
in a long relationship and then I was married. The same
Now you're
same
married.
7 years. Yeah. No.
Oh, oh,
So I had a long relationship that failed, and then I got married, and that unfortunately failed as well.
okay. If you were, in your present, because you're in a healthy relationship now, right?
Yes.
If you were to compare that to your marriage, what would you say some of the things you do now better that you did not do at that time, other than communicating?
Yeah. So the biggest thing that I failed with my marriage is that I turned into being too always want to save the person, always trying to make that person happy,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and kind of inadvertently kind of made everything about the relationship instead of actually being much more present in it and actually be more opinionated about what the relationship and being open talking about the actual relationship. What I
Mm-hmm.
found that I kind of lost myself into trying to please somebody else, because you can't make another person happy if they don't want to be happy. And it shouldn't be your role. It should be
Mm-hmm.
making yourself happy, and then the other person will see that it will kind of if affect the rest of the relationship. But
Mm-hmm.
if both are kind of falling into the trap and making one person the kind of the goal, and the other thing that's found as well, you need to have opinion in a relationship. You can't be that.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's say, like the typical question: where should we go out to dinner? You choose. Up to you.
Right.
Like, and
Mm-hmm.
then all conversation are always like that,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other person will just give up and as you say, take control, and it will be very one dimensional, and that's not
I
something
agree
that's
with
not.
that.
And then relationship, and nobody in a relationship wants to be in that relationship. Okay, there may be one or two that want that, but in the long
Mm-hmm.
run, nobody wants to be in that relationship, because then you kind of you get lonely. You'll be
Right.
lonely in a relationship.
Right. I remember, like I said, I've been married almost 30 years next year, and I'd be like, honey, where you want to go to eat? Wherever you want to go to eat. I'm like, where do you want to go eat? Wherever you
Yeah,
want to go to eat. I'm like, oh my God. Okay, let's go to. And so, yeah, sometimes you just say, okay, let me know where we're going to eat. You know what
yeah,
I mean? And that way I know that you're just deciding and you're going somewhere that you want to go sometimes. It's compromising. When
yeah,
a lot of times they think that they're in a position where they're making you happy because you're getting
yeah.
what you want all the time.
Exactly, exactly.
But a relationship consists of two people, not just one
Yeah.
person. So
No,
yeah.
and it comes back to, as we were saying earlier, like you need to remember that you still need to date.
Right. And key.
Yeah, and you need to still put effort in the relationship, and saying
Yes.
always whatever you want is not putting an effort into the relationship.
Yes, I totally agree.
Then
I
then it's
totally agree.
then it's kind of it's the easy way out in a way. It's like you're copping out. You're
Mhm.
actually not being present. You're actually not being
Mhm.
that person that needs to be in a relationship.
Exactly. It's almost like, okay, it's Valentine's Day or Mother's Day every year, and I know you're gonna give me cash. I love cash, but then this year I want you to go out and buy me something, and you're like, "Well, I know she likes cash. Let me just give her cash." Where you're like, "No, it would mean so much more to me if you just take the time and I feel like you went and shopped and got me a gift." So
Yeah,
it's like you gotta, like you said, you always have to be open and you have to do things outside of the box
yeah, absolutely.
sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
So I totally agree with you.
And as well is that actually somebody, I think it's been talked to quite recently in the press, or someone read it somewhere, or some study that if you want to actually make somebody happy, invest in experience,
Okay.
because gifts will fade, or they will get old, or they will break, or whatever it is.
Mhm.
But experience, going on a lovely holiday, go for a
Mhm.
weekend break, uh,
Right.
or try that new restaurant that you never heard, or try something else. It will leave much longer lasting impression that a gift will do,
I
or
totally agree.
cash in your case.
Yeah, I know, right? I love them all. I love it all. Well, I think the longer you're in a relationship, you always have to kind of reinvent yourself. You have to make sure you're not going stale. I love my husband now as much as I did when we first met. And I feel it's so funny because that doesn't mean a relationship is perfect, because there's no perfect relationship. If someone told you we never argue, we never fuss, they would be lying.
Yeah,
So, you grow from those arguments, and you grow from the ups and downs, and because you mature, and the things
yeah,
you did when you were 19 or 20, you don't do when you're 50 and 60.
yeah,
So I would say, just like we went out of town last weekend. We went to Daytona as a family, and I'm always busy and always doing something, and I never take time. Like
Yeah.
like my goddaughter say, yes, she says she loves creating memories.
Yeah.
Is what she just commented and stated. And it's true, just taking some, and it doesn't always have to be far. It can be close.
Yeah.
You don't have to spend a lot of money. It's it's
No.
it's it's the quality of things, I think, in a relationship
Yeah.
that makes it good and
Absolutely.
fun.
And the other thing as well, it leaves, as I said, it leaves a lasting impression, and it leaves something as well that you can share and reflect on, maybe like in a week's time or a month's time or something like that, that you
Mhm.
actually enjoyed together. I think it's very important to make the experience. Like, don't always do the same thing. Like,
Mhm.
make sure that you have. It comes back to the two people in the relationship. Do
Mhm.
something that one person enjoys. Do something that the other
Right.
person enjoys. Then do something that you both enjoy. Because
Exactly.
because we were not brought into this life to do the same thing every day out and day in. And
No.
if you do that, you lose your energy, you lose your drive, and you get um, displacent.
Bored.
Yeah, and bored. Lack of a better
Bored.
word. Like we would like 50, 100 years ago, we generally didn't live this long, right?
No.
And now I think in a certain way, the social media, the constant variation of information that we're getting now is actually making us more lazy than ever before.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
see
I
so
agree.
much in the relationship when people fall into their phone and they're doing something on the phone and they're not
Mhm.
communicating or not just
Mhm.
making sure they're present or doing something together. Like one thing our kind of our grandparents did very well, or at least in mine, they would play in the evening, they would play a game or they would do something together.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Just something simple
Something that
yeah,
I totally
an
agree. I was
interaction.
in Exactly. I was in Florida visiting my grandmother this weekend. I promise you, my grandmother is 94, I believe. I keep getting
Very
it
good.
late at the time.
This is
She's like
awesome.
94. And we were sitting talking, and I promise you, I was communicating with her, but I had my cell phone out, and she made a comment. You kids are always on. Trying to sound like her on your cell phone, and I'm like, I'm like, but grandma, I hear you fine. I'm talking to you. No, y'all put that phone up. So she wanted all our attention on her, and you
Yeah,
don't realize we always on our phones so much. It's not giving a person your complete attention.
yeah,
It's not, you're not present with that person. It's
yeah,
like, are you here today? Y'all never talk to me and just talk those cell phones. And I didn't realize it, but it's true. You have to put the cell phones down. You have to, instead of just texting I love you, pick up the phone and say I love you sometimes.
yeah,
And if you have a person in your life, whether it be the male or female, and they are not a planner. Sometimes you have to be the initiator and plan the trip and say, hey, we're going here. We're going to eat here. We're going to go to a simple hotel or wherever you want to go just to get away, go swimming for the weekend, away
yeah.
from the kids or whatever. You have to plan. Yes, Grandma Lottie, Shanika. I have someone yeah, Grandma Lottie. She was on me this weekend. But you have to initiate when you're in relationships, and somebody has to step up and take the high road. Because if everyone is stubborn, then you'll never get anywhere. The plateau.
Yeah. And the other thing as well, I find sometimes men get lazy. Like when we already, like I always kind of put this analogy, maybe not the best analogy, when in the old days when we were the cavemen, we went out and killed the animal, brought it home, and then the women would take care of the rest. We
Right.
sometimes feel we still fall into that trap. Man, is that when we've kind of swept the girl off her feet and we're now dating and it's going real well, and that we kind of forget that we actually
Mm-hmm.
need to still be going and do the hunt. And as I mentioned
Mm-hmm.
before, do the dating,
And
actually
do the
put effort
dating.
in. Yeah,
Yeah.
do still the occasional take your woman on a surprise dinner date or the surprise experience or something. Like, don't just fall into the trap of buy something or leave it at
Right.
that. But that's not investing in the relationship.
Let's say chivalry is not dead. Yeah. We want to
No,
feel special and all that good stuff.
yeah,
And that
everybody
kind of
does. Yeah,
everyone does. And it goes both ways, not just the woman. It's the man as well. You have to make him feel special as well. I think that's the key. Just always staying in love. I always tell people getting married is easy. Staying married is the work. And it's the hard
Absolutely.
part. You have to put it in, like you said, and you suggested every day. So listen, if you were going to tell a man that's kind of in a relationship, then going through some things, something, and they want to know, okay, I thought I was communicating, I thought I was being present, I thought I was a good husband, a good father. What would you tell them? How would you tell them? Look, they want to change. What would you tell them?
I would have them reflect on the things that they think they're doing well, and why they think they're not doing well.
Okay.
Because if they already have that thought in their mind, then they have deep down in the gut, they know that something is not, they're not doing something right, and then analyze those scenarios. Then they think what has not gone so well, how they could have done it better. Because if they're already
Mhm.
thinking that there's something wrong, have a self
Probably is.
reflection and fix it. And the other thing as well, don't fix the other person. It's not your job to fix your partner. Your job is to fix you or make
Mhm.
you a better all around human being. So what I
Mhm.
mean is that if things are going wrong, don't try to fix the other person. Um, it's like if somebody tells somebody you need to stop smoking.
Mhm.
Nobody's going to stop smoking because somebody told them to stop smoking. They're
Right.
going to stop smoking if they want to stop smoking.
That's true.
So
Very true.
focus on what you want to fix in your relationship through you. So if you feel you're not going out enough, then you plan going out more.
Okay.
If that person doesn't want to go with you, go on your own.
Mhm.
Because if that person then sees that you're having a time of your life, then that person will then maybe wake up and say, okay, this is something I want too. Because
Mhm.
you got into a place where it's about energy, it's about
Mhm.
energy draining. And if you are always in an environment where something is just draining your batteries every time, you have to get yourself recharged by yourself. You need to
Right.
focus on you are the whole person that you can be, and nobody's going to change that except you.
Now let me ask you this really quick before we go. I understand everything you just, and I understood everything you just stated. However, when they're doing all the things you were speaking of just now, do they, I know they can't fix the person. They can't fix, they have to work on fixing themselves. They can't fix the other person. But should they take their partner, that person they're in a relationship, should they take their feelings into consideration during this time? I mean, should they have to, if they want to be with this person, should they still take that person's feelings into consideration? What the deficits though that person is saying is in the relationship while they're working on themselves? Should they take those deficits into consideration?
Absolutely, and it comes down to the respect of that person and considerations. But at the same time, you need to have that communication channel open and express your feelings and be present. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, you make sure that your needs are being focused as well.
Okay.
It regards to that you're not sacrificing your well-being for somebody else because you think that's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's and again at the same time as we talked about earlier, it's about finding the compromise and the right compromise,
Gotcha.
and,
Okay.
and make sure that you kind of you are there as a partnership, not as a dictatorship, as
I
such.
got you. So basically, being the best version of yourself.
Mm.
You have to be that best person to
Yeah,
yourself before you can be anything to anyone else.
yeah, yeah.
I totally agree with you.
And make sure you're living like you guys yourself as in being healthy and what healthy means to you. I mean, different things. Healthy means different things to different people. Just make sure that
Mhm.
you are, and then it comes back as well. Make sure you're in a relationship with somebody that has your similar outlook on life. Okay, may not have 100% the same, but still has the same thinking of how to bring up kids, how to save for like a house, or you're both on the same page that you want to have a house, you want to have a car, you want to live in Atlanta, or you want to live in Seattle, or whatever it is, that you at least have kind of the same outlook on life. Because if
Right.
it's totally different, like one somebody wants to live in Florida and the other one wants to live in California, and there's no compromise, then in the end of the day, it will never work out.
So basically, if we were going to be the best version of yourself, will make you a better person of someone else. and also to someone, I'm sorry, I had something I was reading to someone was putting a message in. Basically, being the best version of yourself will make you that better person for the person you're
Yeah.
with, and communicating and just find that happy median in the road that works for the both of you, and making sure you're complete as an individual.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if you're happy about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
then you can be that person that is present, the person that can communicate, the person that is
Gotcha.
respectful. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you're not, then you wouldn't have those traits. Then you're not the whole person.
I got you.
It makes
I
sense.
It makes a lot of sense to me. Well, I would say I know I've learned a few things here today. I appreciate you. You were an awesome guest, and I thoroughly enjoyed all the information. I would like to say if you would like to find out more information on my guest, Stefan, I know I'm close. I know I'm close.
You're close. It's very good.
I'm going to try to share his website just briefly if you want to write it down. And then I don't typically share, but I am going to try and share the screen. Let me see if I can share it. Hold on 1 second. See if I can figure this out here. Never share the screen correctly. Oh no, I can't. Another screen is off. Let me tell you this. Chrome tab. Not let me share. But anyway, let me just give you his website. It's highvalueman.is. Highvalueman.is. And you can go on his website and you can learn more about his story and some of the things he's experienced. And I think he has a phone number on there and an email. If you want to ask him some
Yeah, yeah.
questions, you can definitely contact him through there and he'll be able to ask you and answer any questions back and forth. Do you have a book or anything? Someone is asking.
No, I don't have a book
You don't
currently.
have a
It's
book.
something that I'm
Okay.
working on, but it's
You are working on. Okay, well, you can still contact him through his website and he'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
absolutely.
Again, thank you so much for being a part of my show. Thank you again and you have a great day.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Same here.
Thanks, Caroline.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Cheers.